Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum to you all. This is Shazia Ahmed. I'll be teaching you O-level subject Computer Science, course code 2210 for class C2. Well, students, you already have covered almost 80% of syllabus of book 1. I have chosen chapter number 7 for the quick reinforcement in this session so that when we'll start book 2 for programming, we will be easy to relate this topic with the programming concepts. So in this session, I will carry about this way. I'll discuss the objective of the topic, which is high level and low level languages and their translator. After that, I will explain the content of the topic, and in the end, you will be given the questions to practice of the learned concept. Let's discuss the lesson objective. For the week 1, our topic is high and low level languages and their translators. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to define programming languages. You will be able to describe high level and low level languages. Rather, you will be able to differentiate between these two. You will be able to recognize the need of the language translators, that are the compilers, interpreter, and assembler. So let's start our lesson with the basic definition of programming language. A set of rules that provides a way of telling computer what operation to perform is called a programming language. In simple words, we can say that program is a set of instruction, and a language that is used to write the program is known as the programming language. Computer needs instruction to perform a task. Program is set of step-by-step instruction which direct computer to do the task and to produce result. There are some rules and regulations to write programs, and these rules and regulations are the programming languages. So anything which is included in the vocabulary and grammar to write the set of instruction is basically making it a programming language. There are different types of programming languages that are given below. We have machine level language or machine language, we have assembly language, we have high level language. So types. Let's discuss these types. Machine language, which is also known as the low level language. Machine languages are the most basic languages. They consist of a series of current signals on and off. On is represented by 1 and off is represented by 0. It is first generation of language. Machine language is also called binary digit. It is computer's language in which different parts of computer communicate with each other. 0 and 1 are called the binary digit. So machine language is easy for computer and difficult for programmer. Every computer has its own unique machine language. It means machine for Apple Macintosh is different from machine IBM compatible. So machine language is basically the language which uses the instruction in the form of zeros and ones. So this is known as the low-level language. The next language is the assembly language. It is also known as the middle level language, but in O-level syllabus, it will be considered as a low-level language. Assembly language consists of English-like symbolic code known as mnemonics. It is second generation of language. They represent common strings of machine codes. A language translator, assembler, is used to convert source code of assembly language program into the object of machine code or the machine language. Though assembly language are easier than the machine language, but they are highly detailed and cryptic. So programmers seldom write programs in assembly language. Instead, programmers use assembly language to fine-tune important part of the programs written in a high-level language. Here you can see in the diagram the assembly language code is something like this. For instance, if we have to add two numbers, there is a command that will be used, add R1 hash 6 hash 12. It means 6 will be added with 12 and the result will be stored in the register R1. Similarly, for the division, there is another command, diff R2 R1 hash 2. To store something, there is an instruction STO. So basically there are the operation code for different instructions. This is the machine dependent language. So the program written on one machine cannot be run or execute on another machine. High-level languages. High-level languages consist of familiar English words. As a result, programmer can read, write, and understand program easily. A language translator, that can be compiler or interpreter, translates source code of high-level language into the object code. That is why the program of high-level language can be executed on any machine. Here you need to know the difference between source code and the object code. You can say that source code is the set of instructions that we use to write using any high-level language, and object code is the machine code which, when is translated into the machine, into the binary, that is the object code. We have different examples of high-level languages. We have COBOL, we have Pascal, Fortran, GW Basic, C++, C, Java, VB.NET, Python, and many more. Here, as an example, you can see the code of high-level language. For count is equals to 1 to 10, and then in the body of this loop there is a message that is print Allah. So with this we can print any message for any number of time. Advantages of using high-level languages over low-level languages. There are numerous advantages for the programmer. For example, they are near to English language. That is, they are easier to read, write, and maintain. High-level languages make complex programming simpler because we are using our own language. High-level languages are portable. That is, they can work on different operating systems. So the program made for one operating system can be executed on any other operating system. The length of the program is also small compared to the low-level language, because in low-level language, if we talk about the machine language, that is a combination of zeros and ones. The instructions are in the form of zeros and ones. So definitely that will be, for that we need to write huge set of instructions. Many real-time problems can be easily solved with high-level languages. So whensoever there is any problem in the program, that can easily be debugged and fixed, which means we can find and remove the error easily from the high-level languages. Let me tell you one more thing, that high-level languages are the machine-independent languages, which means that they are not machine-specific. If a program is written for one machine, that can be executed on any other machine. Well, there is a disadvantage of high-level language over the low-level language, and that is that they need to be translated for the computer to understand, because computer only knows the language of zeros and ones, nothing else. Hence, these work slower than the machine code. There is question arise, is low-level language still in use? Besides so many advantages of high-level languages, we cannot deny the importance of low-level languages. Programmers still use assembly language when speed is essential or when they need to perform an operation that isn't possible in high-level language. Some examples where low-level languages are still in use. There are certain areas where low-level languages are used. For instance, writing games or simulation programs. Simulation programs are used to imitate the real situation in the modeling. Writing operating system commands the operating system. To build the operating system, we or the programmer work in the low-level language. Programming robotics, for making computer virus programs, certain device drivers, or other items very close to the hardware or low-level operating system. We have already discussed about source code and the object code. Here are the proper definition for the source code. A program written in any language except the machine language is source code. Programmer can write programs in machine language, assembly language, and high-level languages like COBOL, Pascal, and GW Basic, etc. The programs written in assembly language or any other high languages are called source code. Object code. A program written in machine language is called object code. Computer can understand only machine language code. Language translator converts source code of high-level languages into machine code. These converted codes are object codes. You can see in the diagram source code. So the program which will be written using assembly language or the high-level language. High-level language is totally English-based language or the human language, and the assembly language is a partially machine language because that use mnemonics and operation codes and the instructions containing the hardware detail. So that is also the mid-level language. So assembly language program or any of the high-level language program, when is converted into the object code, that requires language translator. So whether it will be using compiler or interpreter or assembler to convert the source program into the object program or source code into the object code. Now let's talk about the language translators. Language translators are programs that convert or translate the instructions in assembly language or high-level language, that is source code, into instructions of machine language, that is object codes, are called the language translators. So language translator basically making the source code, converting the source code into the object code so that computer can easily understand the commands given by the user or by the programmer and can perform the certain task. Computer can understand only machine language. We already know that. Programs written in assembly language and high-level language are translated into machine language so as computer can understand and execute them. There are three types of language translators: assembler, interpreter, and compiler. Let's detail the language translator. First of all, assembler. Assembler is a language translator that translates source program written in assembly language into the object code in machine language. Computer can understand only machine language. Assembler translate programs written in assembly language into the machine language so as computer can understand, execute them. So in simple word, the diagram shows that the assembly language source code program will be converted into the machine language object code through the language translator, which is named as assembler. Then there is another language translator named as interpreter. An interpreter is a language translator that translates source program written in high-level language into object code in machine language during step-by-step execution of program. Computer can only understand instruction written in machine language. Interpreter translate one by one instruction of high-level language source code into the object code of machine language. Interpreter translate one instruction which is executed before translation of next instruction. The object code is not saved, so the source code is interpreted every time before the execution. Each high-level languages has their own language translator. So we understood that a high-level language source code will be converted into the machine language object code through the interpreter. An interpreter will translate each set of instruction one by one, execute it, convert it into the machine code and the object code. Then come to the third language translator, that is the compiler. A compiler is a language translator that translates whole source program written in high-level language into the object code in machine language before execution of program. Compiler translates all instructions before execution. The object code is saved as object file, which is executable. Object file don't need compiler or language for execution. So here we understood that compiler is needed to translate high-level language source code into the machine level object code or executable file. There is a big difference between compiler and interpreter. Interpreter translate each line or each instruction one by one. It checks for the possible error. If there is no possible error, it executes the program. The same thing is done by the compiler, but this translates the whole source code, means the whole program all at once, and translate it into the executable file. That was it for the lesson, high-level and low-level languages and their translators. Now let's take a quick recap what we have learned in this lesson so far. We talked about the programming languages. We talked about the types of programming languages. We said that there are three programming languages: machine level language or machine language, that is also known as low level language, that consists of the instruction in the form of zeros and ones only. Then we discussed about the assembly language, which is partially machine language, and that consists of instruction in the form of zeros and ones, and there are mnemonics and operation code used in it. So this is also known as the mid-level language. Then we talked about the high-level language. High-level languages are English-like languages. They are very near to the human natural language, that is obviously English, and they are different. There are different examples we named in this high-level languages. Then there are the differences of high and low level languages that you need to extract from this presentation, because we have talked I have talked one by one about the high level and low level languages, so you are supposed to extract the differences between these. And then afterwards we discussed about the major difference between source code and the object code. The instructions written in high level language or in the assembly language are said as a source code, and when they are converted or translated into the machine language, that becomes the object code. And in last we discussed about the language translator. We said that assembler is a language translator that is used to convert assembly language source code into the machine or object code. Then interpreter and compiler, both of these translators are used to convert high level languages into the machine code, which is 0 and 1, so that computer can understand the instruction and can execute and make the executable file. There is a major difference between compiler and interpreter that you need to extract from the previous slides. And now we will have a look on the practice. You people are given the practice questions. You need to write the answers of these questions on your journals. The first one is, how many categories of computer languages are there and name them. Second one, you need to explain briefly the differences between each category. Third one, you need to state the different types of translator and their functions. Then in the next question, you need to state 2 programming languages in high level. In the next question, you need to write down is low level languages are still used, and you need to state one application where low level languages are still in use. These are the practice questions that you need to do on your journals, but there are a few questions I have added from the past. You need to practice the past paper questions. There are 2 questions I have included. In question number 1, the reference is given. Its A part says you need to write 2 benefits of using high-level languages for writing programs. In B part, you need to state one type of program that would be written in a low-level language rather than a high-level language and give a reason. In second question, you need to state 2 differences between high-level languages and low-level languages. As you people are in C2 and you know very well about the learning resources, so you can consult PSS BMI to get the full-fledged summary and explanation, and also you can get the quizzes from there. One more thing you need to do, you people are given the workbook by David Watson. If you do not have that, you can download it from the DHA portal, and you need to solve all the questions from the workbook. There is another learning resource, the workbook by Inqilab Patel. I'll share the questions from that in the next lesson. That's it with the high level and low level languages and their translators. I hope you people will practice all the questions, and you will practice the question from past papers, and particularly you people need to practice the questions given in the workbook. That's it. Thank you so very much for your attention. Have a nice day.